You ever notice how every time you buy something new, the excitement fades faster than you thought it would? You wait for that rush, that proof that you're doing better. But by the next morning, it's just another thing lying around. And yet, you keep chasing that same feeling, hoping the next purchase will finally last. What if the problem isn't what you're buying, but how you're spending? Hey book lovers, welcome to BookZeal. In Happy Money by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton, that idea hits differently. It doesn't preach saving, it redefines spending. By the end of this one, you won't just understand money, you'll understand happiness itself. So, let's begin. Chapter 1. Buy experiences. It's strange how often we buy things just to feel alive, and yet, somehow, the feeling never lasts. You order that new phone, the package arrives, the excitement peaks for a few hours, and then it fades, like it always does. The shine dulls, the rush disappears, and suddenly it's just another object in your hand. But a moment you lived, something you saw, heard, or felt, it stays somewhere deeper. It becomes part of you. There's a memory I think about sometimes. A friend once told me about the trip she took right after quitting her first corporate job. She didn't plan it, just packed a bag and left for the coast with a few friends. They rented a small place by the sea, cheap, messy, with salt in the air and sand in their food. Every night they sat on the porch, laughing about everything and nothing. Years later, she couldn't remember what car she drove that year or the shoes she wore to work. But she could still recall the color of that sunset on the third evening. She said it was the first time she'd felt rich. And maybe that's the secret we forget. Real wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we live. The mind does something interesting when it comes to experiences. When you buy an object, your joy starts high and then slowly declines. But with experiences, it often works the other way. You look forward to them, you live them, and later, you relive them again in memory. They grow in emotional value, not shrink. That dinner with friends that went off script, that concert where you lost your voice, that road trip where the car broke down in the rain. It all becomes a story you tell years later. We chase possessions because they're easier to measure. You can count your money, compare your watch, upgrade your home. But experiences? You can't rank them. They're deeply personal, layered with emotion and imperfection. And that's exactly what makes them matter. Funny how peace feels boring until chaos returns. And funny how the moments we label ordinary often become the ones we miss most. The problem is, modern life rewards ownership. Have more, earn more, show more. But somewhere along the way, we stop asking why. Why do we want it? Why does it matter? The truth is, experiences connect us to ourselves and to others. Objects isolate us. You can't laugh with a new phone, but you can laugh with someone across a campfire. You can't share an emotion with a car, but you can share the journey with the person sitting next to you. Sometimes people think they can't afford experiences, but that's not really true. You don't have to fly to another country. You can find meaning sitting on a rooftop with someone you love, or walking through your city at midnight, talking about things that scare you. It's not the cost that makes an experience rich, it's the depth. There's a quiet irony in all this. The more we spend trying to impress others, the less we enjoy the life we're living. But the more we invest in moments that move us, the more we feel our life expand. A man once told me he regretted not buying his dream car sooner. Another man told me he regretted missing his daughter's school play because of work. Guess which one still felt the regret years later? Money by itself doesn't make us happier. But when it becomes a tool for connection, for stories, memories, shared joy, it changes everything. You start realizing happiness doesn't come from what you have, but from how you spend. Maybe that's what buying experiences really means. Not just booking trips or planning adventures. It means using your money to live a little deeper, to fill your time with moments that make you forget to check your phone, that make you laugh too loud, that make you feel small in the best way. Someday, when you look back, you won't remember the discounts or upgrades. You'll remember how you felt in certain places, around certain people. You'll remember the smell of rain, the sound of someone's laugh, the warmth of a sunrise after a long night. That's what real value feels like. Not in your hands, in your heart. Chapter 2. Make it a treat. There's something about having too much of a good thing that quietly kills its magic. The first bite of chocolate always tastes better than the 10th. The first sip of coffee in the morning feels sacred. But the 5th refill? It's just noise. We get used to pleasure fast. That's the catch. The brain adapts. What once felt special becomes normal, and normal eventually turns invisible. I once knew a guy who used to save up for months to buy a particular brand of coffee beans. He'd brew them slowly, savor the smell, treat it like a small ceremony. Then one year, he started earning more money. So he subscribed for automatic deliveries, bags of those same beans showing up every week. And somehow he stopped caring. The flavor didn't change, but the feeling did. He said, it stopped tasting like a treat. It just became coffee. That's how happiness fades, not because the world gets worse, but because abundance dulls our senses. It's not just coffee or food. It's people, entertainment, even comfort. We binge watch, we scroll endlessly, we eat without hunger, we spend without wonder. We keep consuming, hoping for the same spark we felt the first time. And when it doesn't come, we assume we need more. But more isn't the answer. Less, deliberately chosen, can bring joy back to life. Funny how we call it treating ourselves, when what we really mean is reminding ourselves what pleasure feels like. When we turn something rare into routine, it stops registering as joy. And yet, when we create space between pleasures, we give them room to breathe again. Like silence between notes, it's what makes the music work. There's this small bakery I pass on the way to work. For months, I resisted going in, even though the smell of fresh bread hit me every morning. Then one Friday, after a long week, I finally walked in and bought a single warm croissant. It was ridiculous how good it tasted, but what made it even better was the wait, the tiny ritual of denying myself until it felt earned. The next Monday, I walked by again. The smell was still there, tempting as ever. But I smiled and kept walking. Because sometimes anticipation itself is a kind of happiness. We think happiness means constant pleasure. But that's not true. Real happiness needs contrast. Sweet after bitter, rest after exhaustion, silence after noise. The absence makes the return sweeter. There's a reason vacations feel magical. It's not the destination, it's the distance from routine. When every day starts to look the same, life blurs into a single shade. But the moment you step away, even briefly, you see color again. Imagine your favorite song playing non-stop for hours. You'd stop hearing it, but turn it off for a while, and when it comes back on, it hits differently. Life's pleasures work the same way. They need pauses to stay alive. We try to buy happiness by making pleasures permanent. Fancy cars, expensive gadgets, luxury everything. But permanent pleasure is an illusion. It decays fast. The key isn't to own joy, it's to visit it, to keep it a guest, not a tenant. Sometimes making something a treat means saying no for a while. Skipping your favorite takeout, waiting for the weekend to open that bottle, taking a break from the show you love. These small acts of restraint don't limit joy. They protect it. They keep it fresh. There's quiet power in missing something, in longing, in letting your mind reach for what it doesn't immediately have. That longing, when answered, feels like life itself coming back online. The best pleasures are not constant. They're carefully spaced, like stars scattered in a night sky. Too many, and you stop noticing their light. Maybe happiness isn't about having more treats. It's about keeping some things sacred, letting them stay rare enough to remind us how lucky we are to have them at all. Because when everything's available all the time, nothing feels special anymore. And when we remember how to wait, even for small joys, life tastes rich again. Chapter 3. Buy time. There's a strange kind of poverty that comes from having no time, even when your wallet's full. You know that feeling. You've worked hard, made progress, bought the things you once dreamed of. And yet your days still feel rushed, like you're sprinting on a treadmill that never stops. You tell yourself it's temporary, that you'll slow down later. But later keeps moving. Time has become the new luxury. The one thing everyone wants but keeps selling off in pieces, meeting by meeting, notification by notification. I remember this couple I met years ago, both successful, both exhausted. They had a beautiful house, but they never had dinner at their own table. Too busy. So they hired a cleaner, then a gardener, then someone to deliver groceries. At first, it felt like freedom, but they used that extra time to work more. They never reclaimed the hours. They just reallocated them. They didn't buy time. They traded it. That's the quiet trap of modern success. We buy convenience, but not peace. We save minutes, but spend them mindlessly. There's this idea in Happy Money that how you spend your time shapes how you feel about your life far more than how you spend your money. It sounds simple, almost obvious. But think about it. If money buys things and things demand upkeep, then what you're really buying isn't just the object. You're buying the time it takes to maintain it. A new car means hours at the service center. A bigger house means longer cleaning. A fancier phone means more time scrolling. The question isn't, can I afford it? But, can I afford the time it will quietly take from me? Funny how we dream of freedom and then buy cages that look impressive from the outside. But there's another side to it. Money can actually give you time if you spend it right. Paying someone to mow your lawn, deliver groceries, or fix what you'd spend hours figuring out, it's not laziness. It's a trade. You're trading money for moments that could hold meaning instead of obligation. The trick is what you do with those moments. If you use them to scroll through your phone or answer more emails, you've just repainted the treadmill. But if you use them to rest, reflect, walk, talk, play, or simply breathe, you've bought time that pays you back. I once asked a friend what her favorite purchase of the last year was. She said, "My weekly cleaning service." Not because she hated cleaning, but because those hours became quiet mornings with her son. Pancakes, cartoons, messy laughter. She said it made her house feel alive again. Time well spent feels different. It stretches. It lingers. You feel it in your chest, not on your schedule. We chase productivity like it's proof of purpose. But being busy isn't the same as being fulfilled. Sometimes the most valuable moments are the unproductive ones, the slow breakfast, the aimless walk, the conversation that doesn't lead anywhere except closer. We forget that doing nothing is not wasting time. It's letting time exist without demand. Maybe happiness isn't about how much you earn, but about how much time you can spend on things that matter, and how present you are when you do. There's a quiet truth hiding here. If money doesn't make your life feel lighter, it's not buying what it should. The richest people aren't the ones with the most possessions. They're the ones who own their minutes, who wake up when their body says, enough, not their alarm. Who can stop in the middle of the day just to sit in the sun without guilt? At the end of every busy week, we all ask the same question in silence. Where did my time go? The better question might be, where did I go in all that time? Because when life ends, we won't wish for more money. We'll wish for more moments that felt like ours. Chapter 4. Pay now, consume later. We live in a world built for instant everything. Instant food, instant updates, instant rewards. Waiting feels old-fashioned. But here's the strange part. The more we remove the wait, the less we enjoy what we get. When everything's available right now, nothing feels earned. Anticipation, what we used to call looking forward to something, has quietly gone extinct. I remember ordering something online once, back when 2-day shipping still felt fast. I checked the tracking updates like a kid counting down to Christmas. When the box finally arrived, it wasn't about the thing inside. It was the wait that made it feel worth it. Now, when deliveries show up the next morning, I barely remember ordering them. Convenience gave me speed, but stole the excitement. That's what happens when we pay later. Consume now. We borrow joy from the future, and the future always comes to collect. Think about credit cards. They promise freedom, but they reverse the natural rhythm of satisfaction. You spend first, then feel the cost later. The dopamine comes up front. The regret comes after. It's a pleasure delay swap that tricks the brain into thinking we're richer than we are. But paying before consuming, whether it's for a trip, a course, or even a meal, creates something different. It turns waiting into part of the experience. It builds meaning through anticipation. Funny how a vacation feels longer when you've been thinking about it for months. Half the joy comes before you even pack. You imagine the ocean, the quiet mornings, the escape. The mind travels before the body does. That's what pay now, consume later really means. It's not about punishment or restraint. It's about giving pleasure a chance to bloom fully. Because when you've already paid, there's no mental debt hanging over your head. You're free to enjoy. A friend once told me he used to book trips on credit, promising he'd pay them off later. But the funny thing was, he could never fully relax while he was there. Every dinner, every activity carried a quiet tension, like a whisper saying, "You still owe for this." Then one year he tried the opposite, saved first, paid in full, and waited months before going. He said it felt different, lighter, like the trip wasn't just an escape, but a reward. Money is strange that way. When you delay payment, you borrow both happiness and stress. When you pay first, you buy peace. We've confused convenience with freedom, but freedom isn't having everything instantly. It's being able to enjoy things slowly without guilt or debt chasing you. Delayed gratification isn't about suffering, it's about letting your joy mature. When we rush it, it feels thin, temporary. When we let it build, it deepens. There's a reason kids treasure gifts they wait for. Waiting turns wanting into meaning. Adults forget that. We trade patience for access and then wonder why satisfaction feels shorter every year. Sometimes I think the waiting is what stitches the memory into place. You can probably still remember something you once saved up for. A concert, a bike, a trip. You can't remember every impulse purchase, but you remember the ones you earned. Funny how paying early makes the pleasure later feel lighter. And funny how paying late makes the pleasure now feel heavy. Maybe that's the real cost of instant living. We get the rush but lose the richness. So next time something tempts you, try flipping the pattern. Pay first. Wait a little. Let the desire breathe. Watch how it changes. You might find that half the joy isn't in the having, it's in the becoming ready to have it. Because happiness isn't just what we buy, it's how long we let it build before it arrives. Chapter 5. Invest in others. There's a quiet kind of happiness that money can buy, but only when it leaves your hands. It sounds backward, doesn't it? We spend most of our lives earning more so we can finally feel secure, only to realize that the moments we feel most alive are the ones where we give something away. I once met a man who made a habit of buying breakfast for strangers. Not every day, just sometimes when he noticed someone struggling to count change at the counter. He never made a show of it. He just paid and left. He said it started after he lost his job years ago when a stranger quietly did the same for him. It wasn't the food, he told me. It was the feeling that I mattered, even when I thought I didn't. There's something deeply human about generosity. When you give, your time, your attention, your money, it creates a connection that no object can match. it's like the happiness doubles. One half for the receiver, one half for the giver. But it's not just charity. Even small, intentional acts of giving, treating a friend to coffee, surprising your partner with dinner, donating to a cause you actually believe in, shift how you feel about your own life. Because every act of giving reminds you that you have enough. Funny how scarcity screams louder when we hoard, but quiets down when we share. Research shows that people feel happier spending money on others than on themselves. But you don't need research to know that. You've felt it. That warmth that comes from making someone smile. That little flicker in the chest that says, "This is what being human feels like." We think happiness comes from having more, but it often comes from seeing the impact of what we already have. There's a story about a woman who used to volunteer every Saturday, helping kids learn to read. She said it wasn't about feeling noble. It just made her week make sense. "When I'm there," she said, "time feels slower, lighter. I stop thinking about what I don't have." That's what giving does. It anchors us. It stops the endless loop of wanting by turning our focus outward. It transforms money from a mirror into a bridge. But there's a catch. Giving only brings joy when it's personal, when you can see, hear, or feel its effect. Writing a check to some distant fund might help the world, but it doesn't always feed your heart. Buying lunch for someone, helping a friend move, or covering a small bill for someone who needs it, those are the moments that stick. It's not the amount, it's the meaning. There's a quiet difference between spending to impress and spending to connect. One fills your ego, the other fills your soul. I think that's why generosity feels lighter. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't measure return. It's just the small, stubborn belief that what you have can make someone's day easier. Funny how happiness grows fastest in the moments you stop trying to grow it. And maybe that's the paradox. We spend years trying to earn enough to feel safe giving, but the act of giving itself is what makes us feel rich. Even when money's tight, there's always something to offer. A text, a kind word, a little patience. The form doesn't matter. The intent does. Because when you give, the world opens up. Suddenly, people feel closer. Life feels less like a competition and more like a shared space. You realize your story isn't just yours. It's connected to everyone else's. And maybe that's what money was meant for in the first place. Not to separate us, but to bring us back together. In the end, generosity is less about losing what's yours and more about remembering what can't be lost. Connection, meaning, warmth. The kind of wealth that doesn't sit in a bank account, but lingers quietly in the heart. Chapter 6. Epilogue. Zooming out. When you step back and look at it all, it's strange how much of our lives revolve around chasing happiness with money, and how quietly it slips through our fingers when we forget what it's actually for. We buy things, we buy upgrades, we buy more options. But somewhere between the transactions and the totals, we forget the simplest truth. Money isn't meant to fill your life. It's meant to support it. Real happiness doesn't come from more spending. It comes from better spending. Buying experiences, not things. Letting joy stay rare enough to feel alive. Using money to buy time instead of more chaos. Paying before we indulge, so the moment feels lighter. And giving, not because we have extra, but because it reminds us we're connected. When you put all those pieces together, a quiet pattern appears. Happiness has never been about wealth. It's about alignment. When your money and your values point in the same direction, peace starts to show up where stress used to live. I once heard someone say, "I used to think money gave me choices, but now I think it gives me chances. Chances to live slower, to love deeper, to step away from the noise and spend my time where it matters." Because when you zoom out, that's what this whole thing is about. Not just how to spend smarter, but how to live softer. how to make your days feel like they belong to you again. We keep waiting for a point where we'll finally feel secure enough to enjoy life. But the truth is, you can start rebalancing now. You can choose to buy less stuff and more meaning, to trade convenience for calm, to turn your spending into small expressions of who you want to be. Funny how the numbers on a screen can control how we feel about ourselves. Proud one day, anxious the next, when in reality, money only has power when we give it purpose. And purpose doesn't need a fortune. It just needs awareness. You can be broke and feel rich in gratitude. You can be wealthy and still starved for peace. The difference isn't the amount, it's the intention. So maybe the real question isn't, how do I get more? But how do I make what I already have mean more? Because when you look back, you won't remember the numbers. You'll remember the mornings that felt unrushed, the conversations that healed something inside you, the laughter you didn't have to buy. That's what happy money feels like. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, light, and human. It's strange how money, when used right, doesn't feel like spending anymore. It feels like choosing joy, choosing peace, choosing connection. And maybe that's what being rich really means. Having enough to give your time, your presence, your care. Enough to choose how you live instead of reacting to what you owe. So as you step back into your own world, think about where your money goes next. Does it bring you closer to the kind of life you actually want to live? Or does it pull you further away? What's one thing you could spend differently this week, not for status, but for soul? If you felt something in this video, leave a thought below. Maybe it's a moment money once made you happy, or a time it didn't. Either way, I'd love to hear what it taught you. And if you'd like to hear more summary like this, gentle, real, and a little uncomfortable in the best way, stay close. Not because the next one's about money, but because it'll probably be about you.